I'm headed into a different area this time. Today we're talking about the F word, failing, and tools for success, but probably not in the traditional sense. What if you went through your entire life without failing at all? Could you have been successful? What is the value of failing? What else could go into success in swimming and in life? I'm going to be talking about what it might take to be successful. This is the Swim Coach Dad podcast. I'm Victor Swim Club Coach Scott Wisner. Swimming is cool. I go swimming. When I was thinking about this subject, it made me think of this scene from a 2007 animated movie called Meet the Robinsons, where the main character, Lewis, is trying to fix a peanut butter and jelly gun on the fly under pressure. Lewis fails, peanut butter and jelly go all over everyone, and he crumbles in the humiliation of failure. Listen to how his family reacts to his failure.
Okay, that should do it.
It's so exciting. Let her rip, Lewis.
Quickly, Uncle Joe can't hold on much longer. Everybody ready?
Go, Carl. Oh no. No. I didn't know it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You failed.
And it was awesome. Exceptional.
Outstanding. I did better. From failing, you learn. From success, not so much.
It sounds like Lewis thought of not being able to accomplish something as a loss, a defeat, a flaw in him personally. His family saw failure as part of a process, a step toward accomplishing a goal, a way to learn. Some of the things that really bothers both of my children is when they both have a poor swim, they want me to have some stern reaction or say something profound or parental, and they get, okay, that's where we are right now. They see a poor swim as a failure instead of a part of a process. So, how do you take a poor swim and turn that into something positive? What is it about losing that's helpful to a successful athlete? Here's a commercial by Nike that has the great Michael Jordan explaining about losing and failure.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
If you fail and don't learn from the experience, the future only holds more dramatic failure. The opposite is also true. If you fail and learn from it, the future will hold success. So the idea of failing isn't the key here. It's using the failure for something positive that holds the key. I once coached a swimmer who was a big kid. He was bigger and stronger than anyone he swam against, pretty much, and from the time he started swimming as a 9-year-old, he was successful the whole time. He went to Eastern Zones his very first year swimming. He was in the finals in all the big meets, winning the local meets nearly all the time, and all the way through being 15, until he was 15 or so, he was successful. His strokes weren't exceptional. In fact, they were kind of dreadful. I often told him after a swim that his splashing was very impressive, and I told him he swam like a bear. But he felt that he had been successful as he was swimming, just the way he was, and that he didn't need to change. But he was just a big kid for his age and stronger than just about anyone else in his age group. And he trained selectively. I remember he totally sandbagged a long, hard set and crushed the very last 100 of a very intense 3,500-yard set. The response from his teammates was not very supportive, and there were harsh words spoken for sure. He also moved teams more than a couple of times for one reason or another, usually making an excuse like he wasn't getting the training he needed. When he got older, he had a near-drowning accident at a practice doing something stupid, trying to swim 100 meters underwater. He was in the hospital for some time, first in a medically induced coma, and then recovering from the effects of the accident. Then he had to come back slowly to his normal life. He struggled to get back in shape because he had been out of the water for several months. He had always been successful and had never had to deal with failure or being challenged by adversity. He never had the chance to learn how to handle adversity. He would have had times when he would seem to be back, and then he would just take steps backwards. By the time he entered college, he had been thrown off the last club team he was on and hadn't been in the water in months. He swam one semester in college and then was dropped from the team in spite of probably being one of the best on the team based on prior best times. So where did this swimmer go wrong? Was his failure really in the fact that he never put himself in a position to fail? Did he avoid failure? Did he need to be put into challenging situations where failure was possible? I think there's a lot to be said about that idea. There are alternate theories out there on the benefits of failures and successes, but I believe both successes and failures can help to learn from, and that both have to be used in the correct way for them to be helpful. And they're useful in different ways. Success validates the work you've done, that it's in the right direction. Success gives you the self-esteem boost and motivates you because you want more of that success. Who doesn't feel great after a successful swim? That's why using failure positively is more difficult. You have to force yourself to use failure to motivate you, to improve technique, to work harder, to work more consistently, and to change. My experience tells me that failure on its own is not very helpful in learning, but what you do with it, how it motivates you, that's the path that leads you from failure to success. Let's say you have a terrible swim. Disaster. You get out of the pool, you may cry, you may wallow in the emotions you feel. And then what? You just let it sit inside you for days or weeks? How is that failure helping you? I know a swimmer who, for whatever reason, did poorly at a particular pool. Every meet he went to at this pool was a disaster, and we did a lot of meets at that pool. And it got to the point where he avoided meets just to avoid failure, the meets that were at that pool. Of course, the problem wasn't the pool. It was what was going on inside his head. And it started to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every time he went to a meet there, he expected to fail. Even when our LSC championships were there, it was clear from his body language that he wasn't expecting anything but spectacular failure. He had let the fear of failure turn into expectations. It took a full season to overcome this, and what really happened was that he had some good swims there and gradually forgot about the curse of that pool. Fearing failure, for all of us, is one of the things that prevents us from learning and being motivated by failure. Failure needs to be used to fuel passion and effort. You take that and you remember how it felt to fail when you were practicing, when you're working on strokes, when you're racing in practice. Wouldn't that move you forward in the form of motivation? Once you accept failure, you have to move on from there and use it. Wallowing in the emotions of failure is not using it for the correct purpose, which is to learn. We're taught to be outcome-oriented in swimming, and so you train, you race, and you should, if you've done everything right, succeed. And if you didn't meet your goals you set for yourself, you failed and you wasted your time. That's by our standards. But I promise you, it's never a waste of time to work hard towards your goal, and that every step along the way is a chance to learn something that will help you get toward your goal. You have to be in the mindset that if you don't have a great swim, you need to use that to find out what you can do better, how you can improve the things that prevented you from being successful. I'm not saying that failing all the time is the key. Constantly failing wears on an athlete and becomes counterproductive and frustrating. So success is also important. But success is a loaded term. Success needs to be a more open term, not just equated to times. You might have fallen short on your time goals, but you split the race properly, so that would have been a success. You might have improved your turns and holding your stroke throughout the race, and that can be powerful in moving forward and developing too. I love the movie Ford versus Ferrari. One of the scenes after the Ford team was humiliated at Le Mans, Carroll Shelby was called into the office of Henry Ford II to explain himself and why, after spending all that time and money, did they fail so spectacularly. Carroll Shelby explained that while everything on the car broke, and they failed, they posted the fastest time ever on the straightaway on their last lap. And that their competition knows now that they are faster, and that all they have to do is solve these other problems and they'll win. Well, spoiler alert, it wouldn't have been much of a movie if he hadn't been right. After all that disaster, Shelby saw the real success and had seen the possibility of further, more profound successes from those failures. So success doesn't have to come only in times. Improvement is a process, and sometimes those steps are not going to directly impact your times. Sometimes a part of a race is better than it was in the past, or something you did in the race was a big step that will eventually lead to better times. I'm always concerned when hard workers turn success into failures too, or when their expectations are so lofty that the improvements are still seen as failures, not successes. I deal with this all the time with my son, But I think about another swimmer I worked with. We were at Futures, and he had put together a great meet. Best in his life. In the final of the 400-meter free, he swam one great race from top to bottom. And he had a 2-second drop from his best time. It was probably a little bit over 2 seconds. And finished fourth in a really fast field. I was elated with his swim. But I was very disappointed in the response, which was total disappointment, because he thought that he should have been faster. Here's this college-age swimmer who just had the best swim of his life, and he couldn't find any satisfaction in that. I thought to myself that it must be awful to be in that position where you have such success and you can't find anything in there but failure. Some of the greatest athletes in the world do things when they are uncomfortable. And believe me, this is a time for this kind of thinking. We're in a time and place where we are swimming outside when it's 27 degrees out in a 4-lane pool with no lines marking the lanes or targets at the ends. The lane lines are makeshift. We're just using portable lights just to see the ends. And we're swimming late into the night because that's when we can get in. All the coaches know that this isn't the best situation or the most comfortable way to train, but it's what we can get at this point. So tell me, are you going to practice even though it isn't the beautiful Victor Aquatic Center? Do you need to have perfect conditions to train? Are you waiting for us to go back to Victor in order to go back to swimming? Are there days when you don't want to be challenged by the pool conditions or the practice, so you stay home? Is that where your passion for swimming ends? Or are you willing to do what is necessary to keep training so you can make it to your goals no matter how uncomfortable you are? Are you willing to step up, come to practice no matter what, and give it your best because you have a passion for swimming? Swimmers swim. That's what we do. Are you willing to be a swimmer no matter what the conditions? Because we're in a place and time now where you need to find that passion. You need to find that grit. You need to be able to get to that in that less than perfect pool. You need to train and improve. You need to get in your head to think that this is a great opportunity to improve, to change, to make yourself better, to make yourself a better swimmer and a tougher swimmer. You need to accept this as a challenge, not because it's easy, but because it's what's necessary. You need that kind of grit now and keep it beyond when we finally are able to train at Victor. That same passion and commitment that you used to get yourself in the pool at Locust Hill needs to be with you when we're back to our normal practices. So what about this idea of failure and learning from failing? I mentioned sometimes that Eddie Reese has said everyone likes to win, but the real winners are the ones who hate to lose. That doesn't mean they get out of the pool and they throw things and have a tantrum when they lose. They take those losses and they make them motivation to get back to work and fix what caused them to lose. Every practice, we see swimmers trying to take the easy way out. Kicking seems to be one of those places where cheating is preferred by several swimmers instead of working to improve their kicking. What's the point of that? In a kick set, why would you stop kicking 5, 6, 8 yards from the wall, every wall of every set, and start swimming if you knew your kick needed to improve? Why be selective in your effort when you need to give your best effort at every practice? This has to do with grit, or rather the lack of it. In 2013, Angela Duckworth developed a way to predict success of students. She looked beyond IQ, household income, or any of the other traditional measures and distilled the qualities down to a character, a type of character she calls grit. Her book, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance, is really worth reading. And in the process of developing her ideas on grit, she came up with questions that lead to determining how gritty a student is. Well, the same works for athletes, since you need to have grit to be successful in swimming as well. This goes along with the growth mindset that some of you have heard Coach Mike talk about. For all the questions she asked, the answers are either very much like me, mostly like me, somewhat like me, not much like me, not like me at all. The statements are, new ideas and projects sometimes distract me from previous ones. Setbacks don't discourage me. I don't give up easily. Number 3 is I often set a goal but later choose to pursue a different one. Number 4, I'm a hard worker. Number 5, I have difficulty maintaining my focus on projects that take more than a few months to complete. Number 6, I finish whatever I begin. Number 7, my interests change from year to year. Number 8, I'm diligent. I never give up. Number 9, I've been obsessed with a certain idea or project for a short time but later lost interest. And number 10 is I have overcome setbacks to conquer an important challenge. Having grit is more than having perseverance. It's more than working hard. It's more than coming to practice. It's also finding passion in what you are doing. Passion might not be something a lot of people can understand clearly or even define. It isn't doing only what you like or what you think is fun. Sometimes the things we're doing are not at all enjoyable, but they're part of something that we enjoy in general. You have to find the fun in working hard at what you're passionate about. You have to allow working hard to excite you. Grit is a strength of character, and it's something that can be developed over time. Grit is the ability to push yourself to overcome feeling tired, sore, not in the best mindset, and still come to practice and give it everything you can. I once coached a very talented young man who was a bit like this other swimmer I talked about before. He could win any event at any meet he wanted. He won all of his events convincingly at Eastern Zones every year. He was national age group champion as a 10 and 12-year-old, and as a 12-year-old, he was national age group champion in 6 events. In fact, last I checked, he was still on the all-time top 100 swims for 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds more than 30 years later. Now, he had a personality and behavior to accept the challenge and develop the grit. He had something of a challenging home life, so he was already a bit on the gritty side anyway. But to keep him developing, we had to put him into a position to fail, to be uncomfortable, to develop grit. He rarely swam in his own age group after he was 11 or 12. We went to meets well outside our area to find swimmers who could challenge him. At the same time, we used these meets as goal meets for our other swimmers, so they too would develop and improve. It got to be that these big travel meets became more of the goal for the swimmers on the team than our LSC championships. And each year, we would have more and more swimmers go into these meets. This swimmer also knew who was out there nationally, who was swimming faster than him, who could challenge him. Never in the time he swam with me did he ever think he was without challengers or competition. All through this, we put the swimmer in a place where he was challenged and where he had to overcome some adversity. We would swim him back-to-back-to-back events to give him a chance of feeling the stress and to have to struggle a bit. He did keep improving and was one of the top recruits in the country out of high school. He swam out west at one of the top colleges in the country, and he had a very successful college swimming career. I'm not sure if he wouldn't have been successful if we hadn't pushed him to fail or be challenged, but there are plenty of swimmers who quit the sport after having no failures the first years of swimming careers. We didn't want that to happen to him. I know this might sound a bit cruel or harsh, but in order to prevent this young man from being just another 12-year-old national age group champion who was never heard from after turning 13, we needed to build something else in him, and that was grit. That passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking to your goals day in and day out, month after month, year after year. It's working very hard to make those goals reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. You might think we're just talking about swimming, but in reality, this is something you all need for the rest of your lives. It's also very helpful in swimming and other sports, but it's important to be successful in life to have that kind of grit too. You need to have a passion and commitment in everything you do, and you can develop that grit in swimming and help you your entire life. I grew up with an exceptional group of swimming friends. So many are wildly successful now, 40 or more years later. I can see how they became that way. Maybe it was how they were all raised, although we were all raised by different parents in different homes. The one thing that we all have in common is that we swam together for years. One of my swimming friends is on the front lines in developing innovative diagnostic tests for determining concussions from a saliva test. The company he founded also has a test for diagnosing Parkinson's disease and autism, and they do extensive saliva testing for COVID-19. Another friend manages $23 billion, that's billion with a B, for a large financial company. Another's a professor at a high-level college with a PhD and extensive writings published in his area of expertise. Another's a famous movie actor who was nominated for an Academy Award. Another's a highly successful real estate developer. They all have that grit we've been talking about, that commitment, perseverance, and passion to doing what is necessary to reach their goals. I see in them the same qualities now that I saw in them years ago when we were driving every morning to swim in a freezing cold 50-meter pool 40 minutes away because that was the closest one to us. They all weren't super successful swimmers, but what they learned from swimming has taken them to great heights as adults. So you might think I've been talking about swimming, which I have, but at the same time I've been talking about skills and ways for you to be successful in college and then in life. While swimming isn't all there is in life, swimming can impact your life profoundly. Thank you for listening. Until next time, this is Coach Scott Wisner from Victor Swim Club. Remember, keep swimming.